All right, so hello and welcome to the video. My name is Wade Smith, and in this video, I'm going to be discussing something I've proven I can do at the Gracie Dojo, which is about, I don't know, 3.5, 4 miles down the street. Maybe it's a little more than that. It might be more like 5 miles because it's actually in Hammond now. They closed the Ponchatoula location. Anyway, it's Gracie United. Raphael Ellwanger owns the chain. It's about 20 something gyms in the chain. And he is, if I remember correctly, the first cousin of Royce Gracie. Um, and he's either now a fourth degree or fifth degree Gracie Black Belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. All right. And his best students are third degree black belts now. And they are, in fact, professional fighters with anywhere from 6 to 20 something professional wins each. And I have beaten all of them in rolls and have a winning record in rolls against all of them. And I'm not even a professional fighter. And they win the local, statewide, and region-wide league, have winning records in the local and statewide region league. And I'm pretty sure Michael had a falling out with Raphael because Michael wanted to be a partner with him because Michael was actually doing most of the teaching, all about 90% of the teaching at Raphael's Hammond and Ponchatoula locations. And Raphael was charging him rather than paying him as an employee, apparently. And so Michael tried to start his own school, and Raphael kicked him out, if I remember correctly. But anyway, be that as it may, I tapped Michael out of 4 rolls on the first day, and I don't remember the second or third time that I saw him and other times. But on the first day, he never tapped me out anyway. But on the first day that we were there, that we did rolls together, I tapped him 2 times in a row with the simple front wrist lock, and he could not get out of it. And I was able to crank so hard that he had to tap out. All right. There was another time when he was trying to put the disarmor on me, and he actually got it most of the way on me. And I remembered how to reverse it from my yellow belt class when I was 12 years old. And I flipped forward and rolled out of it and reversed it on him and tapped him out with the disarmor. All right. So I tapped him out 3 times out of 4 attempts on the very first day. And like I said, he had over 20 professional, not amateur, professional, as both he and his wife and Raphael said, wins in MMA, and was either a second or third degree black belt at the time. The other assistant instructor there, which is Nunzio, I tapped him out 2 times, although he also tapped me out twice, but he's a 265-pound heavyweight, borderline super heavyweight. All right. But he had 6 professional wins by submission and 5 losses, ironically, by knockout, because he doesn't know how to throw punches and doesn't know how to block punches, which I tried to explain that to him. I was an expert at striking and counter striking, and they thought they were teaching me something to do. That I don't even consider myself a grappler, and I beat them at grappling. So anyway, I tapped him out one-handed, even though he was a 265-pounder, with the vise or filter under the nose one time, and with this thing on the side of his neck the other time. I just grabbed it and cranked on it and caught the whole muscle group right there and cranked on it, and he had to tap out. And then he was like, I don't know if that's legal in UFC. And I'm like, you can check the rules. That's legal in UFC. That's not considered pinching. That's actually grabbing hold of an entire muscle group. That's no different than putting an arm bar on somebody or a chokehold. And I got my thumb under between the muscle and the and the vertebra of the neck and simply pulled out, and I tapped him out on the ground with that. And he had to tap, and he was like, I don't think that's legal in UFC. I'm like, what difference does it be? You claim to be teaching street self-defense here, and I just beat you at your own game with one hand. And he was literally, at least a good 50 or 60 pounds bigger than me. So yes, I can teach you how to not only beat Gracie Jiu-Jitsu fighters, but I can teach you how to beat supposed MMA fighters, because the style of karate that I studied was Isshinryu karate, which was one of the first true mixed martial arts in modern times that did both striking and grappling full time. It's a combination of Goju-ryu, which is primarily a striking style, and Shorin-ryu, which is primarily a grappling style, is what Isshinryu actually is. So I know, as I've said elsewhere, I know over 200 grappling submissions that don't require me to be on the ground on my back or on my face on top of my opponent. I can submit you standing up. The most likely thing I'm going to do is catch you in a front wrist lock, and if that doesn't tap you by itself, I'm going to kick your guts out with a crank and kick, crank and kick, crank and kick until you tap or until the referee calls a stoppage to the fight. But, literally 9 times out of 10, if I'm fighting a brown or black belt level opponent, what I'm going to do is catch them in a front wrist lock or reverse wrist lock and kick their guts out. The other portion of the time, I'm going to get them either in a cross arm breaker or a reverse neck breaker or standing back breaker is actually what I like to finish somebody with, and finish them also standing up either way anyway. But the cross arm breaker being about the only submission, that or the full arm bar or reverse arm bar being about the only thing I would go to the ground for, because I don't need to go to the ground to choke you out either. I can choke you out standing up with the sleeper hold. So I don't know what all this going to the ground is. Let me explain something. And yes, I am overweight because I'm 44 years old and type 2 diabetic. So to cut weight for a real fight, I could do that, but I would have to starve myself for about 4 to 6 months. It's doable, but I don't try to stay at 185 because it requires me to stay on a starvation diet 24/7. But when you get the sleeper hold on someone, you got the figure four with your hands. Your one hand is locked into the seam of your elbow, as you know, and the other hand goes behind the person's head, and you crank down. All you have to do is step back and tell them down, 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 yell in their ear, down, 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 and choke on them. You don't need to wrap your legs around them and go to the ground and roll around on top of them or bottom of them and wallow like a dog on the ground to choke somebody out with a sleeper hold. In about 10 or 11 seconds flat, I can choke you out standing up with the rear naked choke variant or the sleeper hold variants, any variant of the rear naked choke. You don't have to wrap their legs up and crank on them like it doesn't even take a lot of pressure to choke somebody out with the rear naked choke. All you're doing is blocking the carotid and jugular arteries and veins respectively, and the person is literally out in 10 or 11 seconds, no matter how tough they are. Let me show you something. My sensei did not give away black belts. This is my last belt promotion, and if you look closely there, it actually says first Q, not first Dan. The reason being, I failed the black belt test about 6 times in a row because for the life of me, for whatever reason, I could not memorize the last couple techniques in Sun Tzu Kata, and for that reason, he kept failing me on the black belt test, even though I was already beating his second-degree black belt students literally in handicap matches, and they were not cream puffs. One of them was an 8-year veteran of the Marine Corps and an 8-year veteran police officer of the Hammond, Louisiana Police Department, and used martial arts every day of his life in street engagements with criminals. And the other one was a lightweight second-degree black belt who was a year younger than me, and I was middleweight, about 185, and he was 155. But the veteran Marine was about 235. So he was on the low end of heavyweight. And since Mark was a 4th-degree black belt in Ishinryu Karate, a 2nd-degree black belt in Shotokan Karate, max level Krav Maga instructor at the time already, and at least, if I remember correctly, at least a 1st-degree black belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is everything that he was trained in, and combat judo, although I don't even know what his rank was in judo. But he cross-trained in every style anyway. We did a seminar in Tai Chi, which is basically slow motion Kung Fu. It's more submissions and breathing than anything. It's a lot of waste of time. Kung Fu, most practical Kung Fu is actually submissions, not striking. Kung Fu is not a very striking friendly style. It's more small circle jiu-jitsu oriented. Did 50-hour Tai Chi seminar, 50-hour Kung Fu seminar under a 6th-degree black belt, and then 200 hours of seminar under a 7th-degree black belt, Arsenio James Advincula, in Ishinryu Karate, which, of course, he's now a 10th-degree black belt in Ishinryu Karate and a 10th-degree black belt in Okinawan Kobudo, which is basically weapons fighting, sticks, swords, knives, sai, nunchucks, Okinawan Bo, you name it. All right. So he's a 10th degree black belt at Ishinryu Karate, and he's a 10th degree black belt at Kobudo weapons fighting, traditional weapons fighting. And he was my instructor's immediate instructor. My immediate instructor studied directly under him, and I did 200 seminar hours under him. All right. And he retired from the United States Marine Corps with a Medal of Valor and 6 Golden Stars for good behavior. So don't tell me that he doesn't know how to fight, because especially in his prime, he was he literally founded helped found it. It was his idea, actually, and I forgot who brought it to Congress, but it was literally his idea, and they gave him a congressional black belt eventually for founding or co-founding the Marine Corps martial arts program. So, don't tell me that I wasn't trained by anybody that knew what the heck they were doing. And by the way, I mentioned this on Patty the Baddie's video where he supposedly taps out Marines. Those are not fully trained Marines. Those are recruits, by the way, in the video, first of all. Second of all, in modern times, they only train Marines, contemporary times, they only train Marines to about light green belt level, roughly. Whereas when my sensei and his sensei were in the Marine Corps, they were being trained to black belt level in the Marine Corps. All right. Third, I was literally trained, because they don't train Navy SEALs to any decent level either. Navy SEALs are trained to what we consider to be about green belt level 2 in hand-to-hand combat. And I was literally trained to beat not 1, but 2 armed Navy SEALs in a 1 versus 2 handicap match. And we were assuming they would be armed with batons or a screamer stick such as this. And they used to take the 2nd degree black belts and the brown belts, because I was going to go into the Marine Corps. That was my plan at the time. That kind of got shot in the foot because the recruiter turned me down because of a past medical issue. So I didn't get to join the Marine Corps like I hoped. But that's another issue. Anyway, they used to take the brown belts, the black belts, and 2nd degree black belts and take 1 or even at times 2 of them armed with the screamer sticks and have them stand about 15 feet away from me at a 90 degrees angle from one another and attack me from 2 directions at once with the screamer sticks. All right. I'm in a confined space, so I can't really swing it correctly. But you don't swing with your arm anyway. That's stupid. That's a waste of energy, and it makes it too easy to block, to intercept. All right. But anyway, they would I had to have no weapon, and they would have a screamer sticks, and they would attack me, and it was my job to evade and disarm both of them to get that was what my black belt test was fighting 2 other black belts and seeing how well I did against them. And I could disarm both 2nd degree black belts in the dojo attacking me with these sticks, the screamer sticks. All right. As I said in the other video, if you see somebody choking up on their screamer stick to fight like that, they're nonsense. That's garbage. That just gives me another fulcrum to grab to disarm them. The proper way to hold in a screamer stick is with the bottom of the stick flush with the bottom of your hand, like that. All right. It maximizes the range of the weapon, and the person trying to disarm you only has 1 end to grab hold of instead of 2 ends to grab hold of. All right. So, how was I disarming them? Well, when they swing, you get when they swing, you get the timing of the backswing, and you step in and grab them by the wrist with 1 hand and by the stick with the other hand, and then you either knee strike them in the abdomen or you front thrust kick them in the abdomen. And while you yank in as hard as away from them toward yourself as hard as you can to rip the stick free from their hand and torque against their thumb. 1 finger here, 4 fingers there. So you're going to torque against their thumb, and it pops right out of their hand by the time you thrust kick or knee strike them in the abdomen. All right. And I got to where I could do that to 2 black belts or 2nd degree black belts attacking me simultaneously at the same time. So that's the standard that I was trained to. They train Navy SEALs in the modern Navy, and they train Force Recon and Navy SEALs to approximately what we consider green belt level. And I was, for my black belt test, kicking the shit out of 2 2nd degree black belts who had weapons attacking me. All right. So I am not a cream puff and never was whenever I was taking martial arts full time. Like, I showed on one of my videos. It's a couple years old, and I'm not sure which one it is because I have about 500 videos. I'm not very popular because people don't want to hear the truth, apparently. But I took a headboard. This one is a little bit thicker than the one I broke, but not that big of a difference. This is about an inch and a quarter to maybe an inch and a half oak headboard or hickory headboard. And I took the headboard out of a bed and broke it over my knees, if some of you might have seen that. And then, because that wasn't impressive enough, I doubled it and then made another video and broke it again over my knee with a knee strike. Okay, so that's a clenched knee strike motion. Start at about shoulder to head height and pull down into a rising knee. And that's how I broke a concrete and wood composite headboard from a bed frame that was doubled over my knee. All right. And most people can't break one of them. Most people wouldn't even try to break one of them if they saw it. I don't wrap my hands when I fight or spar. Or by the way, I never have. All right. Because if you throw a proper vertical fist punch leading with the first two knuckles, you might bloody your knuckles just from hitting something so hard that your skin gets cut. But that's not that big of a deal. I'm not going to break my own wrist or knuckles over you whenever I can punch a cinder block and break it. So, if you think I'm a fake, take my challenge. If I can't beat you in 5 minutes or less, pro fighter, if I cannot finish you either by knockout or submission in 5 minutes or less, I will pay you $1,000 out of my bank account. I got a debit card. I'll get the cash and pay you $1,000 if I fail to finish a pro fighter in 5 minutes or less. That's the challenge.